Am I the asshole for refusing to be with my wife during childbirth or signing the birth certificate until she proves that the baby is mine and that she and my best friend didn't have an affair? My M44 wife Cynthia F41 and I have been married for almost 15 years. I raised her older children as my own. We have 2 kids together and one that she just gave birth to, but I won't sign the birth certificate until I get a DNA test. Back in 2014, we had a huge crisis due to her infidelity. Her AP was her supervisor, and I only found out when she was abruptly fired and the company filed a case against her for allegations that I won't discuss here. Her supervisor was a co-defendant. She had to come clean about the whole thing, including having had an affair that lasted 2 years. I completely lost all trust in her. I requested paternity tests on our kids together, they are mine, got a lawyer, and moved out. I eventually forgave her and tried to move on because the pain of breaking up our family and not seeing the kids every day was unbearable. We had a very good run until now. Our relationship felt stronger. The sex was great, I felt like she was the woman that I fell in love with and was very happy that I gave us another chance. Years ago, her best friend Dana F42 cut her off. They were friends since grade school, but Dana abruptly ended the friendship, changed her number, and even blocked me and our older kids everywhere. Cynthia expressed sadness about it for years and often talked about Dana like a true sister. When my wife got pregnant with this last baby, she got very depressed about everything. Dana was our go-to person in case of emergency, so I thought maybe some type of closure would help. I managed to get Dana's contact information from a friend in common and asked if she would be willing to talk. To my surprise, she was interested. The conversation wasn't what I expected. She called me a flying monkey and said I ought to be ashamed for enabling my wife. She said she was absolutely fed up with Cynthia and that she abandoned the friendship because she got tired of feeling like a tool, always having to do favors and being generally at my wife's service. She said she was unable to share anything because my wife only talked about herself and that my wife failed to even thank her for gifts and other things, but kept raising the bar and asking for more and more stuff from her. Dana mentioned having attempted a slow fade, but my best friend Gary M48 stepped in, and it put her off tremendously. I didn't know this. I didn't know that Gary was sent by my wife to talk Dana out of restricting their time together when her best friend became distant and that he pressured her and tried to force her to contact Cynthia. And that this resulted in a complaint against him because his messages became menacing and he hinted at sending her spyware. I know Gary can be intense but never like this. He works in IT, so the spyware part is not entirely impossible. Dana and Gary never had any contact prior to this. Dana cut everyone off out of distrust and because she did pursue a complaint against him with the authorities. She sent me evidence, the court case number, and receipts. I'm hurt because not only did he get in trouble for trying to help my wife, but he actually got into a serious situation, and it was kept a secret from me. I confronted him, and he said that he was just trying to help. I confronted my wife. And she said she was desperate because Dana had always been her main support system. This did it for me. I don't care how many times my wife says nothing else was going on, I have no way to erase the idea that they might be hiding other things. The fact that Cynthia managed to get Gary to do something that he knows is illegal and that he went too far trying to please her makes me wonder about things. Also, during our entire conversation, Dana insisted that Cynthia is a black hole of a person and that she was disgusted that not only my wife had been using her for years, but would not think anything of engaging third parties to enable herself to keep extracting benefits for whoever she wants. To make matters worse, I asked if she knew that my wife had cheated, and she said yes and that it played a part in her disowning her. I will not even be able to go back to talking with Dana because she made it clear that she wants nothing further. Back in the day, I thought Gary looked off, but when I asked, he said it was about him separating from his ex and that he was bummed out. I talked to Cynthia about it. I told her that I reached out to Dana and what she said. She looked horrified. We went over that for days until I couldn't take it anymore and asked if she and Gary had any time of inappropriate involvement. She reacted angry and seemed very offended. Also, now I feel that maybe her depression over Dana wasn't real. Maybe she wanted to use that so that I could accommodate her with whatever she wanted. I requested a paternity test on the baby, and she flat out said no. She threatened to divorce me. This is why I moved out weeks before she gave birth. I refused to drive her to the hospital or be at the birthing room. All I'm asking is for confirmation that it's my child and she isn't acting cooperative. She tried to deny Dana's complaint to the authorities, despite me offering evidence. Gary has apologized for keeping secrets, but he's denying ever sleeping with her. I'm anxious, but sometimes I get very numb and wonder if I'm being crazy. I understand that Dana was very right to act the way that she did, but I have no evidence of cheating or an affair between Cynthia and Gary. This has affected my health, and sometimes I feel that the less I see or hear from Cynthia, the less chances to get an anxiety or panic attack. Obviously, my family knows that we are separated and are showing divided opinions. Some say that I was impulsive and that I'm jumping to conclusions. They didn't know about her cheating years ago. I'm not meeting the new baby until she can prove my paternity. She's having health issues related to post-birth. I'm present for my kids and haven't skipped on my duties. But told her to either have a relative come help her out or move to their place temporarily because I will not be helping her in any way until this is resolved. She says that I'm being abusive and that being alone in the maternity ward was humiliating. Am I the asshole? Moving on to story 2. I found out the actual reason my mom lost custody of me, and I don't know if I can ever look at her again. I was removed from my mother's care by DCFS when I was 11 years old due to allegations of SA posed against my stepfather. He was convicted of those crimes, but took a plea deal which meant he'd be out by the time I was 13, and from what I can remember I don't even know that he served those 2 full years anyway. I was his primary victim. I don't remember how old I was when it started, but the earliest he admitted to was when I was 8. I don't know if my mom knew before DCFS got involved or if she found out afterwards, but now I don't think it would have mattered to her if she was aware. After being put into temporary custody of the state while the legal issues were sorted out, eventually I was placed with a relative and her husband, who later adopted me when it was clear my mother wouldn't be getting me back. My adoptive parents put me in therapy, got me the help I needed, did everything they could to make me feel safe again. Something they never prevented me from was speaking to my mother. I was always able to call or text her, and she was always allowed to come visit me, but I could never go and see her. I didn't really question it as a kid. I assumed it was some stipulation the courts made. I believed growing up that the reason my mom hadn't gotten me back was because of neglect, I guess. I assumed that the court thought it was partly her fault that I had been left unattended with that man so often. Or that it took someone else noticing I was physically injured for something to be done about it. My adoptive parents never challenged these assumptions I had, and they always told me that they would never stop me from having a relationship with my mom so long as that's what I wanted. Once I turned 18, my mom and I started talking more frequently, but we didn't see each other in person often. I never really thought much of it at first, but as the years went by I started questioning the circumstances of my removal and subsequent adoption. I was confused as to why a woman with no prior issues with the law would have had her child taken from her in such a cut and dry way. I decided to ask my adoptive parents about it, and they very gently informed me that my mother was told that in order for her to regain custody of me, her husband, my abuser, would be required to leave the home, and could not under any circumstances come near me. Not only because he was an offender but because I was the victim. My mother evidently could not meet these conditions, and so I was adopted by my relatives. When I worked up the courage to ask my mom if it was true, she didn't deny it. She told me she loved him. That he was a good man who made a mistake. They said that she could have her daughter or she could stay with her husband, and so she chose him. She picked him over me. I don't even know what to do with the things I'm feeling now. I feel sick just thinking about it. She's my mother, and she knew what he did. He was convicted of sexually abusing her 11-year-old child, and she refused to leave him. For the past 12 years she has willingly slept in a bed next to the man that assaulted her daughter. She has stayed married to the man who hurt me. My adoptive parents said they were advised by the therapist to let me figure it out in my own time, as my mother, despite picking that man over me, never made any move to have me near him again. She just wasn't willing to make him leave so that I could be with her. Evidently, the therapist thought it would be more detrimental in the long run to keep me from communicating with my mother entirely. None of that makes me feel better. The past 2 days have felt like a nightmare. I don't understand how she could stay with him. I don't understand why she chose a monster over her child. I'm trying to understand why my adoptive parents didn't tell me, but to be honest, I don't really understand their reasoning either. My mom has been texting me, but I haven't answered. I can't even think about her without feeling nauseous or so angry I want to cry, or both. My adoptive parents keep checking in on me, but I've only answered the phone for them because I don't want them to drive here out of concern. I really don't even know what to do anymore. Edit: I said this in a comment, but I thought I'd clarify here too. I'm not necessarily mad at my parents, I'm just overwhelmed with the reality of this situation. I don't know how I feel, but I know I need time to feel it. I am still in therapy, which is related to the abuse I experienced, so I do have a professional to rely on for guidance if I need it. And I don't think I'll ever be able to speak to my mother again. I can't get past this to forgive her or understand her reasoning, and I'm not sure I will ever want to try. Thanks for tuning in to today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support. Love diving into more stories like these? Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on the latest uploads. And hey, if you know someone who'd love these stories, be sure to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more amazing stories coming your way soon.